This episode is brought to you by Honeysuckle White. If you're looking for ways to make mealtime healthier in the new year, make your favorite recipes with turkey from Honeysuckle White. Take the pressure off, keep it simple and tasty without sacrificing flavor for nutrition. Whether you want a delicious sandwich or post-workout protein, Honeysuckle White turkey can do it all. Visit honeysucklewhite.com for recipe inspiration and to find retailers near you. Honeysuckle White. Eat what you love.
Did you know at Kroger, shopping online with pickup and delivery is the same as shopping in-store? Same low prices, same personalized deals, same rewards, with no hidden fees or markups on your same family favorites, like Honeycrisp apples and pasta sauce. The only difference is you don't have to put on shoes. Start your cart today at Kroger.com. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Brooks Running has a new shoe for you runners out there. Did you hear that? Better turn up your volume. In fact, turn it up to the max. Introducing the all-new Ghost Max. It's got all kinds of things to make your knees and ankles feel protected, like Max Cushion, Max Soft Landings with DNA Loft V2 foam, and Max Smooth Rides with their Glide Roll Rocker. Feel better on your run with Ghost Max. Learn more at brooksrunning.com.
Good morning and welcome to Slogging It. Eugene and I here with you this morning and joined by, a hero of English cricket, a good friend to Eugene and I through our work with the Lord's Taverners. Incredibly excited to welcome Mike Gatting OBE to the podcast. Thanks so much for your time, Mike.
Morning, John. Morning, Eugene. Very nice to be here. And the sun's out there shining, which is very nice. We haven't got any snow yet, fortunately.
No, a lot warmer indoors than it is outdoors. I was saying to Simon this morning when I had a conversation with him, certainly where I am in the Midlands, it looks like it might be 8 or 10 degrees outside, but then you open the front door and get basically kicked in the nuts by this Arctic cold that we seem to have at the moment, and it's an absolute nightmare. But I shan't be venturing too far this morning. As we always start, Mike, just a brief overview. Everybody who loves cricket and listens to the podcast is obviously aware of Mike Gatting and who you are and your history in the game. Maybe not how you started in the game. Can you give us a bit of an insight as to where your love of the game started from, whether that be school or family?
Well, I suppose my love of it really started, I suppose, just being outside and being able to whack a ball, I think, being able to hit something or kick something or, just like, wanting to do something. So when we went on holidays and we played down on the beach and you'd see other people playing cricket or football, we sort of joined in and played, and that was it. But I suppose really where a lot of it started, my mother and father worked for my mother's worked for Smith Industries, and my dad actually built planes in a place called Pricklewood. So he was an aircraft fitter. And and this big company called Hanley Pages had a sports ground, which was up near the Welsh Harp on the A406 there by the big shopping centre on the North Circular Road near Neasden, Hendon, round there. So it was Brent Cross basically as a shopping centre. But and we sort of managed to find ourselves up there because Mum and Dad did an extra job because they had 2 young kids, and they did an extra job at weekends. So they became the steward and stewardess of the club. So they were up there sort of, most of the sort of from 10 o'clock through till 10 o'clock in the evening at the weekend, sometimes a bit later than that, but it was fine for us because they had tennis, they had bowls, they had a sailing club, they had loads of fields around to play, they played cricket, they played football, there was archery in the winter, they did dog training and all sorts of things. So we were there every weekend, if you like, from a very young age with grown-ups. So there's always equipment, there's always a ball. The bats obviously came up to about here, and the pads did as well. But, we had loads of stuff to play with. So, when they talk about how do people start off, if you can start a kid off with a bat and a ball at a very early age, it's amazing how quickly they do it. And especially if you're playing with grown-ups as well. They always throw it a bit quicker than they used to. So when you get to age group cricket, it's all a bit sort of slow because you've been facing or playing with, obviously, people who are faster, quicker, stronger. And that was the case with the football, to be fair, as well, with Steve obviously going to play for Arsenal. But the real sort of turning point, I suppose, in many respects, were two things. One was I saw an advert in a newspaper, our local newspaper, the Wilson and Brent Chronicle, that Brunsbury wanted some young kids, and this was sort of under 10s. And I thought, oh, Brunsbury, great. Well, actually, Brunsbury, from where I lived, I could actually get on my bike and it wouldn't be a problem. The trouble was, Brunsbury Cricket Club's in South Hampstead, and South Hampstead Cricket Club's in Brunsbury. So that all sort of caused a bit of confusion because I had to then get on a bus or I needed something to take me there and back because Cricklewood was quite a long way away for a sort of a 10-year-old, although you could get on buses those days. And I arrived at Brunswick Cricket Club, and from then on I met a guy called Ted Jackson and Peter Ferrara, and they were absolutely fantastic. I mean, Ted was 6'2", a bit of a beard like yours, Jono, and he would bark things, and he was so enthusiastic, and he frightened some of the kids, I have to say. But I just loved the ability to be able to go up there every Friday and play. And the other thing which was quite interesting was at my primary school, Wickham Primary School, we never played cricket. Then all of a sudden, I had a geography teacher that came in. But this geography teacher was a lady, and she came from Sri Lanka. And she said, why don't you play cricket? So for the last sort of, I suppose, bit and a half of my primary school, we started playing against other schools. And that was a huge thing because obviously playing in a team, playing against other people, you're getting out of school. So all of a sudden that bit of, if you like, responsibility, that bit of ability to do something different in your school. And actually, I wasn't the brightest possibly at that age, but, it gave me a bit of kudos in the school because I could play cricket, I could whack it. It wasn't a problem. And so that helped my work, actually. It helped my schoolwork and they then knew they had a bit of leverage. If I didn't do the homework, then I wouldn't play in the cricket squads and so it really focused the mind on getting the work, as it did in obviously the secondary school I went to. So Mrs. Collister was a very, very important part, as was Mr. Guy called Mr. Gordon Griffiths, who was my geography teacher, funnily enough, at secondary school. And he ran the football and rugby. And so I just got on his back and said, we're going to play some cricket. So we did in about year 2 or 3, but my brother joined as well. We started up our own cricket team. We ran that. So that was really the sort of broad base, but really pinning all that together was Brunsbury Cricket Club. And the fact that I got in at a young age of 10 with a coach who was just huge enthusiasm, loved the game, and was prepared to go the extra yard with somebody who he thought was worthwhile.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see that Brunsbury still going and still thriving as such a club. And I suppose what I'm interested in, Mike, is understanding how, obviously, you were successful when you played at Brunsbury. How did the transition from club cricketer to professional cricketer work when you were playing cricket? Because nowadays we've got academies, people are scouted at a very young age. Was that the case when you were playing, or things changed vastly?
There was a man called Don Bennett who was hugely, hugely influential in that second stage, that stage between school and first class cricket. But also you got to remember, I suppose, for me, and again, it's a bit like the cricket you play in South Africa and the cricket you play in Australia. It's different. And in the club cricket in that part of the world, you're playing against test cricketers, etc., etc. So my test cricketers, actually, because I started at 13, were these very good, if you like, minor county players who played a lot in club cricket, a lot of very good club cricketers. And they used to practice on a Friday, and they used to, do the right things. And I was always playing with people who were stronger, faster, fitter. So again, I had to adapt to that. And I suppose because I was always around grown-ups playing cricket at a very young age, that possibly helped the transition. But the transition from, I suppose, club cricket to second level cricket, and second level cricket was quite good in those days because a lot of the overseas players played in second team cricket. A lot of minor counties guys played in and out because there weren't that many on the first class squads And so they need to get a lot of people from outside. So the second team cricket was always very strong. So that also helped too. So going up that level, and I remember going out to play my first game, I think I was about 15 or 16, in a second team game at Ealing Cricket Club. And we were playing Kent. And everybody come along to see this supposedly wonderful young cricketer that Middlesex were about to unearth. And I walked out first ball. John Shepherd was bowling, the West Indian guy played a lot of time for Kent and Gloucester, and lovely man, Shep. And I still play golf with him now. He's a fantastic man. I remember him running up bowling, and I played forward, and it swung, and it nipped off the pitch, and I nicked it first ball. Caught Nichols bowled Shepherd. Naught, first ball. And I walked out, and I walked back in. And that's when I started to understand a bit more about what a team meant, because when I got back to Brondesbury, they said, look, don't worry about it. Had you been in for, got 10 or 12 and then got out, it's the first penalty gift. And they were so good. I was like I wanted to disappear because I'd gone out and I was so nervous and whatever. And you realise in the end, even the great players are nervous. You ask people like Tendulkar or Viv Richards, and they say if they're not nervous, they say it's not right. You should always be nervous because that means you really want to do well. If you're not really caring about it, we're all nervous. So, if you knew that when you were sort of a little bit younger, you might have sort of found out, but and maybe done a bit better and realised everybody's nervous actually. But people deal with it different ways. So for me, the group of cricketers were my first cricketing family, the Brondesbury guys who I played with day in, day out, and that's quite important to feel part of a family, I think. And that's why if you have a good team, they work well together, but you need lots of different people. You can't have the same sort of people. You need different sort of people. You need spiky people. You need quiet people. And, there were those sort of things. And so you understood that. And you learnt that if you just sit down like I used to in the bar with my half a shandy and as a 14-year-old just listening to these guys talking about cricket and the passion and the fun and the love they had for it. It was quite incredible. And so you learned and understood a little bit more about the game if you wanted to listen.
When you talk, Mike, about needing people, obviously cricket, I think it's obviously getting a lot better, and the PCA do some fantastic work these days around player mental health and support networks for players and whatever. Cricket, quite famously, I think, had the highest rate of post-career suicide. For a period. Do you think, it must be about leaving what is such a strong bonded environment with, like you say, these squads of people. I know squads now are much bigger than they used to be back when you were playing, but do you think that is the reason where people fall out of that kind of structure and being around those people to basically just going back to the four walls of their own house?
Yeah, I think it is. When you get into and it is those journeyman cricketers, sadly, who are the ones that suffer. Those are sort of on the cusp, on the fringe, etc. And when they're so used to sort of almost like living with, in fact, you live more time with your cricketing mates than you do with your family, sadly. If you do play professional cricket, you do tour. And, it doesn't surprise me. And when the wages were so low then as well, I know you could buy a terrace house at one stage for about 500 quid. That's how old you remember back then, and you know what goes on. But the fact was, it was about turning up. You'd have breakfast with your mates, you'd have lunch with your mates, you'd have tea with your mates, you'd go out and have a beer with your mates, you'd go home, say hello to the lovely lady you married who's just about to embark on a journey, sadly, if people do well on their own with the kids, etc. But and that was it. So you'd get up in the morning as well. You'd say hi to the missus, kiss the kids goodbye, and then off to work. And then you wouldn't see the kids because they'd be in bed by the time you got there. So the family really was the team. And I can understand that because you got, in a way, you didn't have time for many other mates. You may be here and there, but your mates were the cricket team. And then all of a sudden it's taken away from you. And there's no need to go into work. There's no need. And then you've got to start making other friends. And, a lot of the time when people retire, for example, the pension fund that people had in those days was absolutely disgraceful. and I got a very good bit of advice early on, was to start your own one up. But some of the monies that guys got when they finished were not very good, and they obviously relied on the testimonials and the benefits and whatever. And if you didn't invest that wisely, still you had sort of 30 or so years to actually live, and the pension wasn't that, and you had to get a new job, and there wasn't the PCA around then, so you had to rely on mates to a certain degree, and people to help you out. Fortunately, in London, there's if you played at Middlesex, there were people, if they were that way inclined, a lot of contacts in the city and whatever. And it, for some of them, it wasn't too bad. For others, it was not their cup of tea, and they couldn't do it. And finding jobs at that age was difficult. And then they couldn't cope, and if they've got young families and bits. So sadly, all that sort of stuff. And of course, there were the odd predators out there when they saw somebody with a lot of money, with testimonial money, they'd say, "Oh, come and join us, we need a..." And of course, in the end, it's their friends, sadly, or supposedly their friends, and they don't help, and they always destroy them. And I'm not saying that's in all cases, but generally speaking, and the other side of it is the physical side of things. People were had injuries and bowled through them, and they weren't all this help around, and then all of a sudden they got to go into hospital to have something, and it costs them an arm and a leg, sadly, a lot of the time. Sorry for the pun, didn't mean that. But it's a serious, because it's a serious subject. I mean, they would, and they, when you talk about knee operations and stuff and how much it costs, and the money they didn't have, and of course, it just sort of made it very difficult. But now the PCA are doing many things, and have done brilliantly over the last 20 or 30 years, which is educate guys at a young age, so that if they do come out of the game early, they've got something to fall back on. They're looking after other players, obviously, through the foundation, with regards, if people do fall on hard times, they can help them. They can help people have operations and get things done. So there's a lot of huge amount of difference, and I'd like to think we won't see that too much more now, because it was the people who gave their lives to cricket almost that in the era probably before us, although there were sadly 2 or 3 notable ones whilst I was around, that for different reasons, sadly we couldn't save.
As you say, most of these guys that you play cricket with become your mates. If you look at it from a corporate point of view, most people will call them colleagues. How would you say, or how did you become a leader of people that you were such good friends with? Is it something that you just naturally sort of grew towards, or was it something that you were thrust into? Where did that leadership attributes for obviously captaining Middlesex and then moving on to captaining England later on, where did those attributes come from?
I think other people, to a degree, decide whether you're going to be a captain or not. There are times when you see, someone like Michael Atherton having something written on his case, future England captain sort of thing. Feck. So I mean, he was called Feck because everybody thought, because he was that bright and he was this, and he was going to be a future England captain, which is quite true. Somebody in my case, I never really thought about being captain really at any stage. Although I seem to be put in charge of teams because maybe I was stronger, probably heavier, whatever you want to call it. People just said, you do it. You're prepared to say a few things, and some of the things I said probably wasn't very good. But so people tend to pick the captaincy. The reason I got it at Middlesex wasn't because I was first choice. Embers was, but sadly he had a mishap, as I did later on in the team. He went away to play in a team in South Africa, and the club didn't like that. And so when Breeze retired, they were going to give it to Embers first, I think. And then they said, if it doesn't work out, then we might want you to do it. Then all of a sudden, phone call comes in and says, we want you to do it. Now, prior to that, I was, Don Bennett was always captain of the second team because he played with us. So he was always captain, so he didn't really need anybody. And then if it was somebody else, it was one of the senior guys, because I was certainly too young, at sort of 17, 18. And then I went over to Australia and played grade cricket for 2 or 3 years. So once I started playing in '76, which meant I was sort of 19, I went over to Australia, played grade cricket, which was, for me, where I learned a huge amount inside sort of 3 summers out there that I helped me enormously to get to where I got to be perfectly honest. Because one, it gave me another insight as to, again, what different levels you need to play at. Because, you know, my first match as a sort of 20-year-old in '77, because we just did the back end of that summer. Well, '76 we did the back end, so it was '76, and was Thompson and Pascoe, who were, you know, playing in the Test team, and, you know, obviously later to play against both of them as a sort of 21, 22-year-old. So the time for me at Balmain Cricket Club was just enormous, and I learned a huge amount. Unfortunately, I was out there with Bill Athy, who was playing for Manly, and Beefy and Graham Stevenson were down in Melbourne, and it was a really good scholarship. So we got out there to play in cricket that a lot of the time, and our cricket in county cricket was quite strong then, I felt was probably better on a regular basis. And the way they practiced, they didn't practice every day, they practiced twice a week, but it was full on. They didn't care who you were, whether even their own Test players, you know, they were human. You know, they didn't so all right, we're playing against him today, but we bowl them a decent point and get them. There were just these sort of mental sort of scenarios that they had that, you know, they didn't care who you were, and you know, but if you earned their respect, it was huge. And, you know, over the sort of 3 summers I played there, and it was broken up by going on an England tour as well, which I obviously learned a huge amount from. And when I came back for the 3rd time, they wanted me to be captain. Now, that was possibly unheard of over there, having an Englishman as a captain. But I did it, and I got good support, and, you know, we did things as I felt that were fair. That's what I did, you know, and as I always looked at it as, you know, treat people the way you'd like to be treated yourself. And if there's a hard decision to be made, you've got to look people in the eye and say, look, you actually really know why you're not playing, because you ain't playing very well, sadly, and we've got to give something else a go. They don't like hearing it, but they do, if you know what I mean. And I think they appreciate people just being honest with you, you know. So I suppose that's the way I did it. I wouldn't ask anybody to do anything I wouldn't do myself. I tried to be honest. Sometimes it's only very short, so I'm not a man of a lot of words, but it was just to the point. And I allowed, as we'd always done at Middlesex, and Riz encouraged this, was people to have their say. And if they wanted to have their say, that's fine. But you might not like the reply, so be careful about what you do say. But once we get out of the dressing room, back on the pitch, we're all playing together again. And I think, you know, that sort of...
How do you feel great on vacation? Like really good? Easy. You go to Aruba. You'll spend your time relaxing on cool white sand beaches and floating in healing blue water. You'll immerse yourself in natural wonder and find your center on an island where things move at your speed. You won't just feel great, you'll feel relaxed, renewed, and ready for life. That's the Aruba effect. Plan your trip at Aruba.com.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, you know, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Tired of ads interrupting your gripping investigations? Good news. Ad-free listening on Amazon Music is included with your Prime membership. Ads shouldn't be the scariest thing about true crime. Just head to Amazon.com/ad-free true crime to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads.
Enjoy thousands of Acast shows ad-free for Prime subscribers. Some shows may have ads.
Ethos we had in the team was fantastic. But we did have a very, very good team. So on one hand, it was lovely having a team like that, but there was a lot of very strong characters. So you had to stand up for yourself, and you needed some support from the others in the team. And again, that's where I was very lucky. We had a lot of good senior guys because we had one guy that wanted to be captain and was never ever going to be captain because the players didn't like him. I won't say who that is, but and so therefore he was never going to do it. But he had trouble accepting that, and he was always, quite. He was never what I'd say destructive, but just annoying, and he knew he was being annoying, and he wanted to be annoying, but he was a fabulous cricketer, and you'd always want him in your side. So that was another lesson you learn very quickly, is that as captain, it's not always going to be easy with people. It's going to be difficult. You're going to have to put up with. You're going to have to treat people differently. Because everybody is different, and you want that in a team. Actually, you don't want everybody agreeing with you and everybody sort of saying yes, 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 captain. You want somebody to be, well, I don't think that's right, and you can then have a sort of an open discussion, but say this is a closed room. What's said in here stays in here, and you're allowed to say whatever you like, and it doesn't matter what you say. And if you're criticising me, it doesn't matter. That's you can do that. Once we get outside, we're doing it together. And it was a really good unwritten law, and it worked really well in our change room. But there were a lot of fantastic cricketers.
When you talk about following Mike Brearley, who's obviously, lauded as a master tactician, as a captain, and probably not, obviously a great cricketer in his own right, but probably known more for his skills as a captain. How did you then go about running that Middlesex dressing room? Was it a case of, right, okay, I'm now going to do something completely different and put my own stamp on it? Because you're known to be quite combative and quite, strong as a character and whatever. How did the dressing room deal with the kind of two different types of captaincy?
Breeze could be very combative if you wanted to be, I can tell you. He could be very, very, very cross and very, the person concerned and who I haven't mentioned used to have loads of stand-up arguments, and they didn't really, get on, and it was, and Breeze got very frustrated and whatever with this particular person. But so Breeze can be very combative too, and he could get very cross if we were doing silly things wrong or simple things wrong or doing it too often. You didn't mind making a mistake first time, but you got to learn from it quickly, because good sides do that. You don't keep making the same mistakes, and that sort of thing. So they had a little bit of Breeze who could be quite feisty at times, because you have to be. But generally, he would like to sit down and so. But he was a good with people, because obviously he's a psychoanalyst, so he knew how to deal with people, and he knew. So for me, I just had to be me. I just had to say to the guys, look, I'm trying to be as honest as I can with you. I'm going to be me. I can't be Breeze. So you all know, I've grown up in this dressing room. I think we've got a great dressing room, and I think the way it works is good. So I'm not going to change that. All you've got is somebody who's going to be a different character and maybe do different things different ways occasionally. But we've got a good thing that works, and it'd be stupid of me to try and say I'm changing everything. So, because they were such good players, I could do that. I mean, as other players came in, as I'm sure they'll tell you, the youngsters, they thought it was bloody hard chaser. It was. And, he had to be full on. And it actually made them better players, because they had to learn quicker. And they understood that to learn quicker. And, what we were doing was good, because we were successful. And there are a lot of actually good sides out. We always competing with Essex and Lancashire, Yorkshire. County cricket was strong, even, all the way down, basically. But in the 80s and the early 90s, it was really strong with all the overseas players. Sometimes we had two, but we had overseas players for whole years. You had half the West Indies squad all playing for a whole year. So you didn't miss anybody. And then you had a lot of the South Africans who were coming over all of a sudden, and the Australians were thinking about it as well. And then you get the odd Indian, Pakistanis would come. It was just a fantastic place to play against all the very, very best in the world. New Zealanders came over, who were always making the most of their ability, and for a small country turned out some absolutely amazing players, Hadley, Turner, Crows. I mean, you know, and the guys are still turning out now. You know, it's just fascinating how an island like that does it. So I had to be me, and people, I had a lot of chat with people. Should I try and do things different? They said, no, they know what you like. And if they don't like it the way you do it, they'll tell you, and you won't do it for very long. But, you know, simple as that. And somebody else will have a go. But, yeah, I was second choice, but I didn't really want it. Didn't covet it like one or two did who really wanted to do it. I was just me being me and wanted Middlesex to do well. So I was happy to do whatever I needed to do. For me, getting runs was that, catching catches, getting a few wickets. That was what I wanted to do. I just desperately wanted to play cricket. And that's what I stuck my mind to.
You've played for a few cricket clubs throughout your career, probably one that we haven't mentioned so far, and probably arguably the most important is the Lord's Taverners. You played for them at a very young age. Talk us through when you started, what your role was within the Taverners now. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I suppose I coming from a sort of a background as I did in Wills and North London, the rough end of Wills, and not the Willesden Green, the posh end. It was Wilson that was next to Harles, and that was quite a rough area. So, you know, I felt very lucky to be being able to fall on my feet by going to Brunsbury and people helping me. And if it wasn't for help from those, I probably wouldn't have got through. So I knew how important it was for kids needing a bit of a start. And a lot of the time when I saw the Taverners, they were trying to help kids in schools and whatever. In schools, cricket was there, and also clubs. And that's all we used to really do, was supply kits and bits and pieces. And then the great minibus came along, which was fantastic. So initially, when I joined the Lord's Taverners, it was about helping club cricket and cricket kids in schools. And then, of course, disability came in as well. And so for me, it was about trying to put back something into the game by raising money to help support the kids in the schools and in the clubs, because the clubs were so important, as we would find out, because obviously during my time playing cricket, we lost a lot of school playing fields. Cricket seemed to fall out of schools, and up stepped the clubs, and the clubs were absolutely fantastic and took on a huge, huge role. And so I just felt it was a great charity. We had some fun as well. I mean, God, we had some fun playing games with different celebrities, and, you know, we'd wander up and, you know, you see Eric Morecambe, you go, oh my God, I've just seen him on TV. And he sort of said, oh my God, Mike Gatting, he's playing. It was just quite an incredible sort of friendships and mutual admiration society for a little while. But they're all keen on just helping the kids and getting kids off the street, getting them playing cricket. And I think the big thing for me that I've always said is that, you know, team sport creates really good human beings, because they don't suffer fools gladly. They want to play together. You know, you learn to play with each other, although some might be different, some might not. You get different colours, different creeds, different religions and different ways of doing things. All that you need to cope with when you go out to work. You know, the discipline, the winning and the losing. You know, if you got to work with somebody, you got to work with somebody. You got to find a way. You got to find a way in cricket. If it's difficult, you got to find a way. So for me, the Tabs was really the first time I'd belonged to a club, if you like, that was outside of a sports club. It was a members club with different people, businesses, etc., etc. So you know, you would listen and learn and pick up things from that. So in the end, it was a bit of an education for me as well, because I was just a North London boy. I'd left school after I'd done my O-levels. I was okay. I could read and write and do a bit of maths. Going up to 6 anyway. And so you would just then start picking up things and learning things. So I had a bit to learn, because, you know, a lot of the guys, you know, when you went to universities, I used to love going to the universities and talking to the young kids who were sort of, you know, doing their bit and how they found it. And you could see them turning up, having had a late night, and they've got dirty green trousers from 2 weeks ago, and they don't really do their washing. And yet they were doing degrees and playing cricket at the same time. But getting back to the tabs, that, for me, it was about helping the kids, and it was a great way of doing it. You turn up to dinners, having a bit of fun, meeting new friends, meeting new people. And so as time went on, I'd do as much as I could when I was playing. Trying to get other cricketers involved as well was important, because we always needed cricketers. Sadly, towards the end, like everything, it changes. You have to morph, and Tabs have done a fantastic job in morphing because of governance issues. And that has been, to me, one of the biggest things that we've had to change, and COVID in effect helped, which was governance. The EDI, the safeguarding, data protection, all these sort of things that you need now to be really on top of. And of course, as times change, there are more and more charities, and so you're always competing with lots of people. So I tried to, when I finished, to get on some committees. I was always in and around the Creed committee. They then said, would you become a trustee? And then you would go on the main board, and then there were, and again, that was another bit of an education for me. But all the while I was trying to sort of keep cricket at the forefront in the tabs, and keeping the main thing there. And after I'd finished, found myself working with ECB, and one of the big things that ECB couldn't do was disability cricket. One of the things I think we're all very proud of at the tabs is we're now running disability cricket for the ECB, which is quite fantastic from where we started those many years ago, just providing, the kits for the clubs and the schools, to now sort of running a huge part of the game within the tabs. And of course, helping with the women's as well, because we now play, women are allowed to play in the tabs as well. So we started doing that. And I suppose, as I say, the minibuses, which sadly we've had to sort of curtail now because of the sort of, I suppose, economic climate. So, so as I say, there's lots of things that have happened, and we've gone through many phases, but we're still here, we're still running well, and we've still contributed a lot to the community, especially the Creed community. And we're always looking to try and help schools and clubs, and we've got 3 or 4 amazing programs. The Wickets programs, which goes into disadvantaged areas and getting kids out and getting them to understand the community as well as playing sport, and actually getting them into sport and understanding what teams are about, and actually making them feel wanted, because a lot of these is their problem. They don't feel. So again, you're almost going down another different line. You've got the table cricket, which is just absolutely enormous, which is tied with then you got the Super One, which is disability cricket. So we've actually probably found ourselves in an area which is quite specialised in disabilities cricket at the moment, but at the same time working with lots of other charities, cricket charities, which is MCC Foundation and also Chance to Shine. And we're slowly building up quite a good array of groups helping cricket, and because Chance to Shine do a great job. MCC Foundation hubs all around the country, and obviously tabs. So I think we're supporting cricket really well at the moment, and although there's always work to be done, and it's been just fascinating for me, having been involved for, what am I now, 66? I mean, for about nearly 50 years. It will be coming up, I suspect. And it's been fascinating just to see how it's changed and how I've managed to help a little bit along the way.
I think, Mike, we could talk to you all day, and we often do when we get together. We like to share a glass of wine. A couple of things that we're desperate to ask you about. You talk about your role on the committee with the tabs. I mean, you have had an amazing array of positions across the World Cricket Council, obviously MCC president, your new role at Middlesex. What's one of the things we were talking about off air, which I didn't really know of previous to this conversation today. You talked to us about the work that you've done in terms of the growth of the game across Southeast Asia and specifically with the Hong Kong Cricket Club and into China, etc.
Yeah, I mean, that came about. We did an MCC tour out there. We got invited out by Hong Kong Cricket Club. They were doing I think, a 150th or something year, and we took a team out, and Melbourne Cricket Club turned up. We had Hong Kong Cricket Club and MCC, and we played a little tournament. And it was actually, they had some very, very interesting people. The Hong Kong Cricket Club, like Singapore Cricket Club, was always sort of like a watering hole on the way to Australia on many occasions. And have these sort of outposts where people can go and play, because a lot of people, went from Australia to Hong Kong, and you met a lot of them out there who were Hong Kong Cricket Club members because they were working for banks and whatever, but they played grey cricket in Sydney. Same in Singapore, Singapore Cricket Club on the way down, at the hub. And so you had many quite influential people, quite sort of people who were keen to help support cricket. And certainly in this club, a man called Rodney Miles has been a pillar of greatness in Hong Kong Cricket Club, along with many other, Tony Malloy and Gavin Erasmus and many before that, who were very keen on getting the Chinese to play cricket before the China came in and taken, obviously, Hong Kong back. But this sort of all started around about early 2005, 6, or somewhere around there, where, we saw the women started to play cricket in Hong Kong at that sort of early stage, and Anita Miles, who was Rodney Miles's wife, started up the girls playing, and Rodney was very keen to try and get some of the Chinese kids off the street and help them play cricket too. And so all of a sudden, they asked me if I'd be a patron of Hong Kong Cricket Club, and I'm really very, very proud to have been that, and still am. And then, the sort of cricket they do with the kids, and, they all of a sudden started building indoor nets on top of the pavilion, and et cetera, et cetera. And so the stuff they do now is quite incredible, but they want to do more. So we tried to go to China when I was president of the MCC. Two of the things I wanted to do was try and, as president of the MCC, because I lived in Willesden, literally 5 miles down the road from Lord's, so at Wembley one way and obviously Lord's the other. And I'm very fortunate enough to be able to sort of end up at Lord's. But, MCC did loads of work around the world, and unfortunately one of the chief execs came in and decided he'd like to do something in the community too. So we got that going. And my other thing was, when I was president, was trying to get cricket going along with Hong Kong into China. I met the Minister for Small Balls, Mr. Song, at the time, and he'd just done huge amounts of work with their tennis and golf, and so we decided we'd have a go at cricket. Sadly, sort of said, well, look, unless it gets in the Olympics, we can't do it. But what we did, we went into a lot of the British international schools over there. They're huge. It's a huge, huge business over there, especially in China. So you had your sort of, Wellingtons, Harrows, Dulwich schools, etc., all round, and the Malverns and Marlboroughs. It's quite phenomenal. And so we started doing sort of 2 or 3 weeks at a time, 2 or 3 schools going in there, because they don't play cricket over there. And even if they're British international schools, they don't, because they've got a group called Favicier, which is a group of all the schools, but they play T-ball for some reason, which is quite interesting. It's not a bad game, but T-ball is a bit like baseball, but they put it on a stump, they put the ball on, and they do run around. It's a bit like an early form of baseball stroke rounders, and they whack a ball. The ball doesn't move, so it's a bit like golf to a degree, but the tee's up here, it's like a stump, whatever. Yeah. And so we sort of tried to get all these guys, English headmasters, trying to play that, but they couldn't, because they were in this group called Favicier, which is a huge group, which is fantastic. And they have 10 sports that they all challenge each other around the year. And it is fantastic for the kids. Sadly, they play cricket. Anyway, so we sort of went away and sort of, after about 4 or 5 years, and then COVID came in, so we sort of stopped. But in the meantime, we sort of been to places because of the people enjoyed us having us there, I suppose, and teaching the young kids and some of the older kids this game, cricket. And because it's an English game, then headmasters talked at these games. And all of a sudden, we're sort of in Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, and then obviously Hong Kong and Singapore. And it became a sort of a bit of a thing. But as I say, COVID interrupted all that. And we had tournaments going in Thailand. Thailand was fantastic. I mean, they really got into it, and the Thai women now apparently are pretty good, as were the Chinese women, I might add, when we arrived over there in the first place. So it won't take much for cricket to certainly get started in either of those countries. And Thailand, as I say, the women now are doing quite well, and China are rebuilding. There's other stories I could tell you, but it'd take too long. But the real nice thing is that Mr. Song, we've now got cricket in the Olympics for 2028, and I hope China actually start taking part, because it is a great game. So, yes, there's a lot of people who've been very helpful trying to get that in, and we pushed very hard. And so when I was chairman of the MCC World Cricket Committee, another great privilege to have done for 6 years, that was one of our things, trying to get cricket in the West Indies. And Hugh Robertson, I know, has been a huge Sepco. Hugh Robertson, been fantastic and helping us do that. And I know there was a lot of work going behind the scenes, and it sort of kept teasing us for, from about 2013 when we started, and we finally got it through. So, cricket on the Olympic stage once every 4 years, fantastic promotion for the game. And for me, it's really quite nice to see that there. And hopefully with Brisbane being after LA, that'll stay in there. And then maybe, apparently India are going to put in a bid to have it after Brisbane. And so we could have 3 years of cricket, which would be, great for, say, promotion of cricket around the world. So Hong Kong has been, the second, if you like, club that I love being a part of. It's got wonderful people in there who provide a home for the wandering businessman and cricketer who want to go. And for any wandering cricketers that are passing through, they're very, very sociable and hospitable. And they too want to see cricket try and help make better people, which will help life. Absolutely. And help the world a better place.
Yeah, it's always good that, Mike. Bringing it a little bit closer to home, what's your plans this year? Obviously, you mentioned a little bit about Middlesex there. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. For my sins, I've been because I worked for the ECB for about 7 years as in charge of recreational cricket in the UK. I couldn't actually get involved with Middlesex because of a conflict of interest, and I was getting very frustrated sitting on the back sideline, seeing a very talented Middlesex side not doing as well as they might. So when I finished the ECB, I thought I'd try and help, but we haven't got very far. But this year they've made me cricket chairman for the professional game. So it's going to be quite a big job. We've got some talented cricketers, and we just need to get something going. Winning is a habit, and you need some obviously some good players, which we've had. We've never quite got to where we perhaps should have done. So I'm hoping we can just have a look at a few things and see whether we can tweak a few things just to get the penny to drop and actually start playing well again, because it's a great place to play your cricket at Lord's. I mean, a wonderful privilege to have played there for many years, and for the Middlesex guys, it must be lovely. I mean, I can't believe you don't love playing at Lord's. So yeah, there's lots of things that need to be done. I'll hopefully try and help get it underway. I think it's not going to be a sort of a year or two job. It'll be a little while, but I've got some good memories of how we did it in our day. I know it's different these days, and there's lots of other obstacles that are in the way that weren't when we played. So yeah, but it's still about the people. It's still about the people who play the game, where they have the pride and the want to be accountable and the discipline and the desire to really be the very best they can be. And so it is always down to the individuals themselves, and the team. And people say the team's about the individual, but the individual's also about the team, and those individuals make the team, as the team makes the individuals if they do well. So it's a bit of, again, chicken and egg situation, and I'm just hoping that we can sort of spark something that will ignite. And we've got some good young players coming through, so we need to really have a good look and see how we can make things better.
As somebody that plays in the Middlesex League, Mike, I wish you all the best. As a keen Middlesex supporter, I will be keeping a keen eye over the next few years.
Well, I can tell you, we will be more visible around the leagues, and we will be playing against hopefully some representative sides from the league on a more regular basis to play against our second team and some of our first team players. And we'll be visiting hopefully the clubs a bit more as well, trying to find out how we can help and where we can get to, and also try and help them make some money as well along the way. So there's some really good things. Hopefully we can get as I say, a bit like the team, rebuild and reacquaint ourselves with the people that we need hugely, because club cricket provides a great service to the communities, and without the clubs, cricket wouldn't be there, and without the people who give up their time to play, help others play a lot of the time. So I know it's. So my point of view is much appreciated and much needed, because they are, as I say, a place where kids are safe and they can learn to be better human beings.
Mark, quick last one from me. As I say, we could talk to you all day. You've been an England captain. You're obviously a globally known face in the world of cricket. And yet didn't come, there's a lot of things aimed now at cricket and the England team about being full of public or privately educated kids. And that's a world that you obviously didn't come through. You came through the kind of state school system, if you like, and it was your talent and hard work that got you through. How important is it that at some stage we try and get cricket back on the state school curriculum, do you think? And what benefits could that have towards the professional and international game?
Look, I think hugely, and it's one of those things that we're always battling with. I wouldn't. I mean, you can't blame, I don't think, the ECB for the fact that we've got a lot of public schoolboys in, because it isn't played in state schools, and therefore, we're very lucky that we've got some very high quality kids coming out, because they've got great facilities, they have the best coaches. So it's not surprising we get all our best players, or a bulk of them, from there. But if we can get it back in the schools, and again, now the women and girls are playing, and it's now recognised and supported by Sport England now, the women's game, and they've taken rounders out of schools and put cricket back in as a sport. We should be aligning that with the guys as well. It is very, very important, because, the cricket clubs need kids coming through to keep the cricket clubs going, because we've got it was actually very fascinating that when COVID was on and nobody could get out, these, I'd say, closet cricketers, all of a sudden, after 2 years doing nothing, all of a sudden they all came out to play. It was quite incredible, the size of, there were so many players. Now, sort of 2 years down the line, clubs are back to struggling again, because I haven't got the people that go in. So the schools are always a huge, huge part. And they don't have to be the very best cricketers. They don't have to be cricketers. They can be scorers. They can be umpires. They can be coaches. They can help at the ground. They can do the bar. As long as they're involved in cricket, help the clubs, because the clubs have lost one of their hugest revenues. And it wasn't, drink driving has really taken out a huge sort of, plus also the demographics of a community that doesn't drink, which is fine, that play a huge amount of cricket. And so therefore, one of the only ways clubs generally made their money was from behind the bar and social. So they've had to change the way they work. So a lot of the clubs have now got sort of Montessori schools in, or they do, all sorts of other functions. So people have to think differently. So even if you don't like cricket, you could actually help cricket clubs if you've got a good mind for, organising functions, etc., etc. So, again, for me, it's about putting people into teams and not gangs, which is a lovely sort of scenario we have at the Tabs. Is that, school sport. It doesn't matter what sport it is. Team sport is good. Individual sport is slightly different, but team sport is good. And playing in teams, and the great thing about cricket is you don't need 11 all the time. You can have 6-a-side, you can have 8-a-side, you can play individual, you can play single. There's all sorts of games you can do to enjoy. So, and you can do them at school. You can do them inside. You can do them outside. You can do them in playgrounds. You don't need green grass these days. So, there are car park leagues in Lancashire where all the taxi drivers play in car parks after work, where there's nobody in the car park. So it's a wonderfully adaptable game, and it's a team game, and you make friends. And when we talk about the mental health of people, having friends and playing in teams and having somebody to talk to is so important. And for me, that's part of school's education, is trying to get people to work together and try and get them involved. And so, yes, it is hugely important. How successful will we be? I don't know, because, there is so much in the curriculum these days that people are there. It's about time, and you need time, and you need individuals. And so, where we used to have PE teachers stay behind and practice with after school, we tried to set up after school clubs. Even that came across difficulties because of the insurance and kids, etc. So there are things there. So we have to do it in school time. So we have to somewhere find, we used to have whole afternoons of sport. We don't anymore. And I think we're worse off for it. And that's any sport. So I appreciate there's only a certain amount you can do. Football's easy. People like that. Rugby in certain schools like that. But cricket is one of those that, again, is an amazing sport, because it's hand-eye coordination. It's moving balls. You're always doing something. And yes, it does enable you to make friends like any team sport. So how we do it is a different question. As I say, chance to shine, go to schools, tabs go into schools. We're all trying our very, very best, but we need some help from the government to understand. And I really do think sometimes they don't understand enough about how much a lot of this obesity, mental health, and making good human beings, sport and team games can do for them. And it would save them an awful lot of money somewhere along the line. And you might as well spend it enabling people to play sport, if it's not in clubs, which is generally a safe environment, and we try and make it as safe as we can, and also sport at schools where they have, again, environments that are safe, well regulated, and they're the places that you can do it. So why are we sort of, stopping, places that are safe from playing sport, if only we need to spend some money on somebody organising whatever sport it might be after school or before school. You go to all these schools overseas, they're all up at 6 a.m. swimming in their swimming pools, or they're playing football or whatever before they go into school, and then they do it after school. So it can be done. It just needs a bit of money and it needs a bit of faith. And if you can do that, you'll have less kids on the street in gangs, more in teams. Not everybody likes sport, I understand that, but it should be there, because I'm sure that 50% of people do like it. And that's an awful lot of people and an awful lot of kids who won't then get into mental trouble or obese or et cetera, et cetera.
Mike, look, absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. As I say, we could sit here and talk to you for days, quite frankly, about the sport. We've got all love and the tabs and whatever. But really appreciate your time. Hope everything goes well with Middlesex this year. No doubt the three of us will get together with Mr. Gower and others for the occasional lunch throughout the summer and some nice events. But really appreciate your time on this cold January morning.
Pleasure, John. Nice to speak to you, Eugene. And keep up the Middlesex League, mate. We've got to keep them going.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike.
Cheers. Take care, fellas.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.